Imagine getting a phone call that changes your life forever. One ordinary afternoon, while I was grinding away at my dead-end city job, my phone rang. It was a lawyer I'd never heard of. "Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry to inform you that your estranged uncle, Harold Jenkins, has passed away. And, he's left you everything." Everything. I barely knew the man. He'd been a recluse, living out in the countryside, and we'd only met a handful of times at family gatherings when I was a kid. But everything turned out to be a staggering 3,200-acre lake ranch in rural Texas, a sprawling paradise with rolling hills, dense forests, crystal-clear private lakes teeming with fish, grazing pastures, and a massive rustic ranch house that looked like it stepped out of a Western movie. I couldn't believe it. The lawyer explained that Uncle Harold had no children, no close family except me, and he'd always admired how I loved the outdoors as a kid. The property had been in the family for generations, bought back in the early 1900s when land was cheap and vast. It included multiple lakes, one over 500 acres alone, cattle operations, timber rights, and even mineral potential. Valued at tens of millions, it was a dream come true for someone like me, tired of apartment living and traffic. I quit my job the next week, packed up, and drove out to claim my inheritance. The drive felt endless, but when I crested the hill and saw the ranch for the first time, my jaw dropped. Endless green fields stretched to the horizon, dotted with longhorn cattle. The main lake sparkled under the sun, surrounded by ancient oaks. The house was huge, stone fireplace, wraparound porch, barns, guest cabins. It was perfect. Peaceful. Mine. For the first few months, it was bliss. I hired a small crew to manage the cattle, started fishing daily, and even thought about turning part of it into an eco-retreat. Neighbors. There were none close by. The nearest town was 20 miles away. Or so I thought. Then, one day, a sleek black SUV pulled up the long driveway. Out stepped a sharply dressed woman in her 50s, clipboard in hand, flanked by two men in polo shirts. "Mr. Thompson? I'm Karen Whitmore, president of the Lakeview Estates Homeowners Association. We need to talk about your property." I laughed at first. "HOA? Out here?" But her face was dead serious. She claimed that a luxury subdivision called Lakeview Estates, about 200 high-end homes with manicured lawns and private docks, bordered my land. And apparently, they had rights to parts of my lake. "Your uncle never paid dues," she said smugly. "And now, with you here, we expect compliance." I told her politely to leave. This was private property. But as they drove off, I felt a chill. Something wasn't right. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a nightmare that would push me to the edge and lead to the sweetest revenge imaginable. After that initial visit from Karen Whitmore and her HOA cronies, I tried to brush it off. I figured it was a misunderstanding, maybe some old agreement my uncle ignored. I spent the next week settling in, exploring the ranch on horseback, mapping out the lakes with a boat. The big lake was incredible, deep blue water, base jumping, eagles soaring overhead. I even found old family photos in the attic showing generations enjoying this land freely. But peace didn't last. Letters started arriving. Certified mail, thick envelopes from the Lakeview Estates HOA. The first one demanded $150,000 in retroactive assessments dating back 20 years. They claimed my property was subject to their covenants because the subdivision's developers had annexed adjacent lands, including access to the lake. Failure to pay will result in liens and foreclosure proceedings, it warned. Foreclosure? On 3,200 acres? I laughed again, but nervously this time. I called a local real estate attorney recommended by the ranch foreman who'd worked for my uncle. He pulled the title records and surveyed the deeds. "Good news and bad news," he said. The good, the core ranch, including most of the lakes, predated the subdivision by decades and wasn't part of any HOA. My uncle's land was grandfathered in, no covenants attached. The bad, when the subdivision was built in the 1990s, the developers had purchased a narrow strip along one edge for road access and claimed easement rights to part of the smaller lake for their residents' boating and fishing. My uncle had fought it quietly but never fully resolved it. Over time, the HOA had grown bold, treating the entire lake system as communal. Karen escalated quickly. Fines arrived for violations, not maintaining community aesthetics, allowing cattle too close to their borders, even for the natural wildflowers I refused to mow. They sent crews to post signs on my fences, private property Lakeview Estates members only access. One weekend, I caught HOA residents on my land, families picnicking by the lake, kids swimming, boats launched from my shore. When I confronted them, they waved HOA cards. "We have rights," one yelled. Karen showed up soon after, demanding I grant full access or face lawsuits. I installed cameras and no trespassing signs. Posted security. But the pressure mounted. They complained to the county about zoning, alleging I was running an unlicensed commercial operation with the cattle. Anonymous reports of environmental hazards from runoff. I dug deeper into old records. Uncle Harold's journals revealed he'd despised the subdivision's arrival, how they dammed a stream affecting water flow, built docks encroaching on his side. He'd threatened legal action but got too old to fight. Now it was my turn. I hired surveyors to remark boundaries precisely. The results were eye-opening. Several HOA amenities, a clubhouse, pool, and dozens of docks sat squarely on what was historically my land, due to faulty surveys from the 90s. Karen crossed the line when she sent a final ultimatum: pay up or they'd seize control. But she had no idea what was coming. With the survey results in hand, I felt a surge of hope. Lines on paper showed clear encroachments: the HOA's prized community lakefront park, boat ramps, even part of their entrance road, overlapped my property by acres. How had this happened? I dove into county archives, spending days in dusty record rooms and online databases. It turned out the 1990s developer, a shady outfit long bankrupt, had cut corners. They'd redrawn plats incorrectly, assuming my uncle's absenteeism meant no challenge. Uncle Harold had noticed but, in his later years, let it slide to avoid hassle. The HOA, formed post-development, inherited those flawed documents and ran with them, expanding common areas aggressively. I confronted Karen at the next HOA meeting, which I attended as an interested party. Armed with maps, I presented the evidence. The room went silent. Residents murmured, many loved their lake access and feared losing it. Karen blustered, "These are approved plats. You're the newcomer disrupting our community." But cracks appeared. Some older residents remembered my uncle's disputes, whispering about that big ranch owner who never joined. I proposed a compromise: formalize limited easements in exchange for dropping demands. Karen refused outright. Instead, they lawyered up, filing a quiet title action claiming adverse possession, arguing decades of open use gave them rights. They trespassed more boldly: parties on my shores, trash left behind, even attempts to fence off sections. One night, cameras caught HOA contractors drilling on my land, installing new docks. I called sheriffs, they backed off but cited confusion. Frustration boiled into anger. This wasn't just about money, it was theft of legacy. I escalated too. Hired a top land use attorney from Dallas, specializing in property disputes. We countersued for trespass, ejectment, and damages. Discovery phase: uncovered gold, emails showing Karen and the board knew about boundary issues for years but suppressed them to avoid buyouts. Meanwhile, life on the ranch suffered. Stress kept me up, I lost weight. But I bonded with locals, ranchers who'd resented the gated subdivision's elitism. They shared stories of blocked public roads, overpumped water affecting wells. The turning point: a forensic surveyor confirmed not just encroachments, but that the main lake's water rights belonged solely to my deed predating any subdivision claims. The HOA's private lake was fed entirely by my property's springs and runoff. If I dammed or diverted upstream, their waterfront homes would dry up. Legally risky, but the threat loomed. Karen crossed the ultimate line. They voted to lien the entire ranch for unpaid assessments, clouding my title and blocking any future sale or loans. That sealed it? No more Mr. Nice Guy. It was time for war, and I had the upper hand they never saw coming. Court filings flew back and forth. My lawsuit demanded removal of all encroachments, millions in trespass damages, and clear title. Theirs pushed adverse possession and forced annexation. Hearings dragged, but evidence piled on my side: original family deeds from 1910, tax records showing continuous ownership, photos of untouched land pre-subdivision. The judge ordered mediation. In a stuffy conference room, Karen smirked across the table. Settle for $500,000 and limited access, she offered. Or we'll bury you in fees. My attorney countered with the survey bombshell: over 50 acres of their developed land, including 30 homes' backyards, technically mine due to plat errors. Panic flickered in board members' eyes. Residents packed galleries, whispering about plummeting values if boundaries redrawn. One elderly couple admitted buying waterfront lots believing the lake fully communal. Discovery revealed more dirt: the HOA had misused funds, lavish parties, Karen's consulting fees while neglecting reserves. Whistleblowers emerged, ex-board members tired of tyranny. I upped pressure outside court. Posted massive signs along borders: historical boundary encroachment dispute in progress. Trespassers prosecuted. Installed gates blocking their unofficial access roads. When they complained, sheriffs sided with my deeds. HOA retaliation intensified. Anonymous complaints flooded county offices: alleged code violations on barns, nuisance from cattle smells. Inspections found nothing. They even petitioned to rezone my land residential, forcing subdivision a desperate grasp. But karma struck. Media caught wind. A local paper ran David versus Goliath, inherited ranch versus greedy HOA. Interviews painted me as the underdog preserving heritage, them as bullies. Public opinion shifted: boycott calls on HOA realtors. In deposition, Karen slipped, admitted knowing boundary doubts but proceeding for community benefit. Perjury risks loomed. My attorney floated settlement: they buy encroached land at fair market or vacate. They balked, overconfident in possession. Big mistake. Then, the smoking gun: an old, forgotten easement from the 90s. Developer granted them access only if dues paid on annexed strips. My uncle never signed, they forged implications. Plus, water rights filing proved the lake's mine alone. I prepared the kill shot: a motion for summary judgment on key claims, plus request to dissolve fraudulent easements. If granted, their neighborhood would lose lake access overnight, homes devalued 30 to 50%. Karen begged for talks. Too late. The line crossed long ago. Revenge was brewing, and it would cost them everything. As trial loomed, the HOA cracked. Residents revolted. Emergency meetings devolved into shouts. Many faced huge losses if lake access vanished. A petition circulated to oust Karen. She clung to power, blaming me for greed. My final evidence drop: expert testimony confirming encroachments worth $20 million in developed value. Plus, proof they diverted water illegally, lowering my upstream levels slightly over years. The judge fast-tracked: preliminary injunction barred further trespass, ordered removal of docks on my side. Chaos ensued. HOA hired barges to pull structures, residents furious at costs. Karen's desperation peaked. She approached me privately on the ranch porch. "Name your price," she pleaded. "We'll pay dues retroactively." I recorded it: legal in Texas. "You tried to steal my inheritance," I replied. "Now feel what loss is." Settlement talks resumed, but on my terms. Attorney demanded, full payment for encroached land at appraised value, $15 million plus damages, legal fees, and public apology. Or proceed to trial risking total eviction from disputed areas. Board fractured. Wealthy residents offered side deals buy lots back quietly. But I held firm, one deal for all. Public pressure mounted. National outlets picked up the story, millionaire HOA versus lone heir's massive ranch. Forums exploded with anti-HOA rage. Donations poured in for my legal fund. Internally, audits I subpoenaed revealed embezzlement traces Karen's family contracts overbilled. State investigation launched. Residents sued the HOA board for mismanagement, seeking dissolution. Panic sales began, homes listed 20% below market, buyers wary of title clouds. I offered mercy, reduced price if they conceded everything, no appeals. But pride lingered. Trial day arrived. Opening statements my side laid out ironclad deeds. Theirs stumbled on weak possession claims. Then, mid-trial, collapse, board voted emergency settlement. They agreed to pay $18 million overtime, vacate encroachments, drop all claims forever. Plus, dissolve lake access pretense. But sweetest, admit in writing the ranch never part of HOA, boundaries as my surveys. Karen resigned in disgrace, facing personal liability probes. The ranch was fully mine cleared, compensated. But one final twist waited. The settlement signed, money wired in phases, $18 million transformed the ranch. I paid debts, upgraded operations, new barns, conservation easements preserving beauty forever. Cattle herd doubled, ecotourism launched guided fishing, hikes profitable without spoiling peace. Homicide. Devastation. Lake access lost, property values plunged 40%. Dozens sold at loss, neighborhood half empty. Remaining residents bitter, blaming Karen who moved away amid lawsuits from angry owners over mismanagement. County redrew maps officially, my boundaries undisputed. I erected tasteful fences, gates welcoming signs for paid guests only. Media followed up, air wins epic battle, HOA loses everything. Interview cemented legend status among locals. But pro-revenge? I bought foreclosed HOA common areas cheaply through auction, clubhouse, pool, parks now mine. Converted to ranch amenities, employee housing, event venue renting for weddings, profitable irony. Restricted access strictly, no ex-HOA freebies. When old residents begged visits, I charged premium, pay up, like you tried with me. One day, a letter from Karen, apology, begging leniency for old friends. I replied politely, boundaries matter. Respect them. Ranch thrives today, family legacy secure, expanded even. I married, kids running wild on land safe forever. Moral. Never bully inheritors of vast property. Cross the line stealing legacy, lose it all. From nightmare to triumph, the HOA gambled on power, I held the deeds. They lost everything. Face screaming in fear collision. Thanks for watching this wild story. Smash like if you hate bad HOAs, subscribe for more, comment your thoughts.